Thank you for having me. I'd just like to start off with the fact that technology is not going to save our oceans. The only thing that can save our oceans is ourselves and changing our behaviour, our consumer culture, and taking accountability from the top to the bottom. So, as we go about our daily lives, the Seabin smart technology is working silently in the background, filtering microplastics, oil, and much more. We filter around 500 million litres of water every day, 24/7, 365 days a week. And this is how we're doing it. So this is a Seabin. This is basically a trash can that we put in the water. We have a pump that goes in the bottom and it filters the water. So during this talk, it's 20 minutes. We have filtered 7 million litres of water globally, which is the equivalent of 3 Olympic swimming pools. And we're filtering the microplastics, the oil, the macro, straws, you name it, whatever is floating, we're filtering it. So it's pretty simple stuff, but it's very effective. And when you start to scale these up incrementally, the impact goes up as well. So when we started this, we were quite adamant that technology is not a solution, as I mentioned. And so what we did was we focused our efforts on cleanup and prevention. And so this next video is a good indicator of what we do on a global daily basis with our different activities. Is there any volume?
Environment, lifestyle, and attraction. Good for setting out to clean it up using innovation and technology, combine that with education and conservation and preventative solutions. This problem is so big. There's 192 countries. We've got shorelines around the world. We need to approach this from as many angles as we can. Collaborate with as many people as we can, because the problem's too great to solve it by ourselves. We want cleaner oceans.
So that is a pretty good example of what we do on a daily basis with the prevention. We work with a lot of schools, we work with universities, we collect the data from 23 countries every week, and we really think that the prevention is better than the technology, but everything plays a role. So when we started this, obviously life below water was a big one for us with the Sustainable Development Goals. For the obvious reasons that we're operating in the water, we're getting the pollution out, we're operating in an upstream location. We started off upstream because we didn't want to go to the ocean where you have ocean storms, Mother Nature is out to destroy everything, and we just figured that the problem starts upstream with humans, and if we can prevent some of the trash upstream, we can stop it from entering the ocean. But what we also realised was that as a startup, we had very limited seed capital. We were funded by the community, and we had to partner up and do collaborations. And so for us, SDG number 17 is essentially how we survived and how we are surviving. And because it's an everybody's problem, we can find a solution for everybody to get involved. So just quickly, this is a brief timeline of our startup. So that's me with long hair, that's my partner, and that's his dog. So this is the original Seabin, and as I mentioned, we were bootstrapping, we still are bootstrapping, so this is me building the prototypes in our workshop, building the filters, changing the different materials, starting off with sustainable materials that didn't actually work because, the natural burlap or hessian, whatever you call it, it would start to swell and then rot, and it wasn't sustainable. So we had to go back to plastic. And what we realized was that plastic is an amazing product, and we are not smart enough to use it properly, because if we did, we wouldn't have a problem with the plastics in the ocean. This is the first Seabin, the albino is what we call it. So from this one to this one, it took us 2 years, but we now have commercial product. We started off with our first commercial product about 15 months ago. We started with one. We now have more than 860 operational in 52 countries. Since we started, we didn't have much money, and so we invested in merchandise. So the merchandise, the water bottles and the cups, this would pay the electricity, this would pay the salaries, this would pay the flight ticket to get somewhere to attend a conference, and we still do this. And then the biggest thing, the most important thing that we did was number 6. This is my wife swimming with a plastic bottle that we didn't put there, but we found it. So what we decided to do was, we're not going to show you photos of dead animals. We're not going to show you depressing or horrific scenes. What we're going to do is show the problem, but in a positive light, because I would like to elevate and uplift and empower every single person to feel good about themselves, to make a change. I don't want you to make you feel bad. And so this has been our marketing sort of campaign or strategy since day one. Another big thing for me was, I read the book Let My People Go Surfing by the guy that started Patagonia. I'm not a business guy. I'm still not a business guy, and I'd never had a business before I started this. I read this book. I didn't understand half of what was in the book, but I knew that this guy was successful. He had $1 billion business, and he invested in the conservation of the environment by using part of his profits. And he could go surfing whenever he wanted. And I was like, this guy's pretty cool, so I'm going to try and be like this guy. And so we kind of adopted the business model of the Patagonia, or the business model ethos, because I wanted to go surfing and I wanted to do all this other stuff, but I wanted to have positive impact. The reason we started as a for-profit was we wanted to have the power of decision-making, where we could not have to beg for money, or we just wanted the freedom and flexibility to do how we wanted. And as a for-profit, what we did was, for the last 4 years, we invested half of everything of the profit. We haven't even had a profit, so anything that we did have in money, we invested in education, scientific programs, and community. So social impact is a big one for us, and what we never realized was, by investing in education, community, social impact, and science, that 3 years later, the communities are driving the demand for our solutions. So the communities are the ones that they bring their reusable water bottle, refusing the straw, but they're pissed off and frustrated because the straws and the plastic, they still see it in the water. And because they saw a Facebook video with our crazy trash can, they're petitioning the mayor, they're petitioning the government, they're demanding these solutions, and they're asking, why are you not trying a Seabin? And because the mayor and the government, they rely on votes, they have to say, yes, we'll try it, we'll talk to the guys. And so we're seeing this pattern now, which is amazing. This is a picture of me with a bunch of 6-year-olds who we did a STEM workshop with. These guys and girls had already designed their own crazy invention. And for us, if you think outside the box, if you use lateral thought, this is when you start to innovate. We put man on the moon by thinking we can do that, and anything is possible. A trash can in the water, it started from a lateral thought of, if we have a rubbish bin on the land, why don't we put one in the water? And so that's what we did, and here we are today. So every day we're collecting 3.6 tonnes of waste, waterborne waste. Some of that is natural, some of that is plastic, some of that is polystyrene, all of it is natural, not natural, all of it is litter, and it all mixed up. There is microplastics we can collect in the filter. A 4-litre container, we can collect microplastic down to 2 millimetres. And then the good thing, when all this trash goes into the filter, it acts as its own natural filter, and we're getting microfiber and 1 millimetre plastics as well. Each Seabin has a very small water pump at the bottom. It costs around $2 a day to run, but what it means is that every unit filters 25,000 litres an hour. And so with a fleet of 860 Seabins in the world, every day we're filtering 500 million litres of water per day. This is part of our data collection. It's a little bit hard to read, but so for the last 4 years, we have invested quite heavily, well, heavily for us, for other people it's nothing, into data, because basically, I don't look like a business guy, I'm not a scientist, and we were trying to work out how people could, take us seriously. So we were like, right, let's get some data, let's employ a marine scientist, and let's get the numbers. But the main reason we did this was because we wanted to know if we're having a negative impact, a neutral, or a positive impact. And so far, the numbers are in our favour for positive. And the numbers, every Seabin collects about 1.4 tonnes of plastic per year. The daily average is 4 kilos. In some locations, we get 100 kilos a day. I think in Hong Kong, we get 2 tonnes of plastic or marine litter per month. In other locations, we only get 100 grams per day. But the global average, depending on weather and wind, population, cultural behaviour, it all averages out to 4 kilos per day. This slide was done about maybe 3-4 months ago, and we had 13 international locations feeding us data. We now have 27 locations, and we're looking for more. So if you want to get involved, you come and see me at the end, and I'll give you a card. We now have over 23,000 hours of data that we collected by hand. It's about 3 tonnes now of data samples. Plus 80,000 particles that have been sampled by hand. And so with these photos, this was a small sample of a bigger sample of the litter that one Seabin only collected over the space of 5 days in Sydney. This is a picture zoomed in a little bit more. You can see the natural debris mixed with fibres, mixed with polystyrene, and then there's plastic nurdles. This picture over here is a 5mm grid, and then each one of these, the majority of these is microplastic, less than 5mm. And this is how we collect the data. We're optimizing that at the moment with our pollution index and getting a little bit more efficient with technology. Our first Seabin is, our first commercial Seabin is this one here. So each filter that goes in here holds about 20 kilos of trash, and 20 kilos of trash that floats is quite a lot. So if you spread that out, we would probably fill up a quarter of this front area of the room. So when you got trash in the water, it's on the surface, it's spread out, it's not deep, it's on the top layer. We got, when this slide was done, there was 720 units. There is now 860. We have 52 countries that we are operational in. And I think we covered that. So then the number one item that we collect is the microplastics. We followed by general plastics, which we have categorised into food wrappers. And then the next one, which we don't have here, the third most common item is cigarette butts. The next one over here, this is, so this Seabin here is designed specifically for floating docks in marinas. So we figured if we're not going to go to the ocean, we'll start upstream and we'll start somewhere that has electricity, staff, maintenance. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel too much, and we figured if we need to pay the bills and put food on the table, we need to start with a path of least resistance. The next one over here, we're working with New South Wales government in Australia. This one goes on a rail in a public space. Think of, say, the canals in Venice or the Hudson River, Amsterdam, hard edge waterfronts, on a jetty, on a pylon. It goes up and down by itself. And this, we think, will help us be the real game changer, because the floating dock market is something like 17%, and then the rest of it is the hard edge waterfront, lakes and rivers. So when we started this, we had a video that went pretty viral. We had like 1.3 billion views, which meant there was a lot of attention given to us, which was amazing. It was also a lot of work to talk with so many people when we only had a team of me for 2 years, and then we had a team of 2. We now have a team of 4, and then we have some part-time. But what we did was we piggybacked onto an existing network that we could scale up, and when we did that, we had the resource and ability to enter different markets. So for us, the biggest challenge was not to create a technology. The biggest challenge was to answer and supply a demand of 172 countries out of 192 countries that have shoreline. And so when we did this, we had a lot of corporations that were like, hey, we have a CSR budget, we have a sustainability budget, you have a cool technology, you had this viral sensation, we like your brand, we like what you do, we would like to partner. And we're like, cool, you know, buy a Seabin, this is what we need, sponsor a Seabin. But we didn't sell them a Seabin, we sold them a package, because these corporations, they had budgets, they had money. So we made them invest in educational events, science and community events. You can't have a Seabin if you don't bring the school kids down there. And the corporates were like, cool, we'll do it, no worries. And so Wärtsilä have invested in 35 Seabins. They donated to 26 countries. And it's just been absolutely amazing. So for them, they can connect with community, they can further their own agenda, and we can have more impact. The next step for us is to work with cities. So you have the smart cities, and we want smart solutions, and we think that the Seabin technology can be a smart part of a solution. And for us, we have the early adopters, which are the ports, marinas, and yacht clubs. But what we're working towards is, why should a marina buy a Seabin to collect everybody's rubbish? And the way it works in a marina is that if rubbish from upstream comes into the marina, it's your problem, you have to get it out, you have to pay your staff, and then you have to pay for the waste to be taken away. It's a weird situation, but this is the reality in a lot of the cases. So what we're doing is working on a service package where we pay the marina to get the stuff out of the water, we pay the marina to do the data samples, we have a leasing program, and we have a fleet vehicle. The person that changes the filter and changes the garbage, he is just not a garbage guy, but he is a community ambassador, because everything we do, we factor in social impact, data, science, and education. And so we think that this is going to be quite successful as well. This is one of the first concepts of the next version of the Seabin, which we call the 6.0, because it is the 6th version. We're very creative with our names. What we're doing is we're trying to get rid of the steel that is in there for a variety of reasons, but also so that we can switch to injection molding, and we can create the Seabins from recycled fishing nets or recycled plastic. So the goal for us is we have to be real. We're not living in a dream. We produce things, we make an impact, we have emissions, we have a carbon footprint, but we can make it smaller if we're smarter. And so for us, we would like to work smarter, lessen the carbon impact, and still make a positive impact as well. So we're partnering with Borreo over here. If you don't know about them, you should know, because they take fishing nets, they turn it into pellets, then they turn it into products. It's pretty amazing, and it's pretty simple stuff. So with us, with the data of what we're doing, we call it the pollution index. And what we found was that for SDG 14, it is quite hard to find a constant, frequent, accurate indicator to measure success, solutions, or negative impact. But what we found by using the Seabins is that they're there in a corner of a marina in an upstream location in hundreds of, potentially hundreds of countries operating 24/7. So we have a quite an accurate monitoring device, which we have base data, and we're creating the base data. So for us, our goal is to hopefully have a solid case study ready for June 2020 at the Oceans Conference for the UN, and we can present this and say, hey, we would like to be a part of this. We would like to use the Seabins as monitoring. We would like to be an indicator. We want to measure success of solutions. We want to measure impact, negative or positive. This was a picture I took last night as we were off. We had left the conference. So every evening that we head home from work, the Seabin Smart technology has been silently working all day, filtering 250 million litres of water for the microplastics, the oil and more. And so part of this is very strategic marketing of where we want to be by being smart solutions for smart cities. If anybody wants to see me to talk about anything, the data, the monitoring, how you can get involved, the for-profit, the not-for-profit, I have a pocket full of business cards. You come and see me and we can have a chat. But thank you, everybody.
피트 세글린스키님의 흥미롭고 유익한 발표 내용 감사합니다.